Hey everybody, I'm Robin Kramer with Flourish and Thrive Academy, and I'm so excited to be here today to talk with Matthew Burnett about secrets to effortless sourcing for your jewelry business. So welcome, Matthew.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Matt. He is the CEO and co-founder of Makers Row, an online marketplace for American manufacturers. And Makers Row has a network of over 4,000 American manufacturers and 35,000 brands and designers looking to create products in the U.S. Makers Row has been featured on NPR, CNN, and CNBC. And Matt, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background and how you became so familiar with sourcing?
Sure. So my background starts when I was a kid, as far as my affinity for industrial design. When I was just a kid, my grandfather, he built a bench for me. He was a horologist, which is a watchmaker. So he built a miniature desk right beside his desk and really taught me a lot about watches, how to fix watches. I think that I broke more than I fixed, but that's really where I started and where I really started to gain an appreciation for design and mechanics. Later in schooling, I chose to go to Pratt to study industrial design.
Very cool. Well, and you've had a couple of businesses, but there's a Brooklyn Baker was a line that you started that you had some sourcing challenges. Can you tell me a little bit about those sourcing challenges you had?
So Brooklyn Bakery was the second line that I had. The first line was sourced overseas. The second line was sourced all domestic. And some of the major issues that I had in sourcing domestically was there was no real online resource or marketplace in which I could find the right manufacturers in order to produce my goods. There are so many other resources to help you find manufacturers on the other side of the globe than there are to find someone in your own country. And so that was the major issue I had. I was using Yellow Pages, Google, all such as that. I'm sure your audience is well familiar with that.
Absolutely. And some of the challenges you had overseas, what were those?
So sourcing as a whole can be pretty difficult, but I was able to find these manufacturers pretty quickly. The issue that I had with dealing with these manufacturers was that I was always pushed to the back of the line because my largest order size would be the smallest order size of a larger company. So I was always getting pushed to the back of the line and always just kind of my dates were always pushed back a month to 2 months out of the year.
Oh, yeah, that's not fun at all. You're trying to run a business. What was the most important thing that you've learned along in this process?
I've learned to be patient. First off, there's a million things to do when you're developing your company. When you're dealing with a manufacturer, you have to make sure that you're keeping a steady line of communication so that you're aware of everything that's going on the other end. Don't just put all of your trust that it's going to happen, that everything's going to turn out proper, because domestic or foreign, wherever you choose to produce your products, you want to have that steady line of communication.
Communication is definitely key. Well, do you have any secrets to making sourcing effortless? And if so, can you give us some tips?
Effortless is a tough word. I don't know how to make sourcing effortless, but I can certainly make it easier. I think that the secrets that I had initially when I was first developing my company, Brooklyn Bakery, we've kind of embedded in our platform, in which we break down the manufacturing process to better understand like who can do what in order to get that product made. It kind of like removes this illusion in which a lot of designers have that are producing potentially overseas, in which they make it seem as though one factory creates one product, but it's always a network of factories that contribute to this end good that you're ordering.
Good information. And just having them all, communicate together, kind of all come together.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Some people like to be that point of contact between all of the conversations, but me, just to make it a little bit less burdensome, to plug them in with each other is always a benefit.
Terrific. Well, many of our designers don't want to use overseas resources. Do you have any advice on sourcing in the U.S.?
I guess my number one piece of advice for people that are searching for production in the United States would have to be really think about the product that you're trying to create, the materials, the quality, the end resale price, and the wholesale price that you need to have. All of this sort of stuff needs to be outlined because the construction of your good is largely dependent upon the price of your good as well.
And do you have, there's a whole movement, as you and I were talking about earlier, about being made in the U.S. and really using resources in the U.S. Are you seeing, how is that, what are your thoughts on that, and just what are you seeing in that aspect?
Let me get that one more time.
Right. I just see there's a whole movement of really manufacturing in the U.S., trying to bring manufacturing back to the U.S.
Sure. Well, when I first started getting back into the United States looking for manufacturers here, it was just because of the complications that I myself had when I was producing overseas. But what I've seen is that a number of large companies are now doing the same thing, just as a matter of keeping closer to those that are producing your product so that you can have a much shorter turnaround time. Because the price differential is really that gap is starting to close quite a bit. If you look at the watches that I produced, I guess it was about 5 years ago, they've doubled, if not tripled, in the price of production in those years. So you can see that it's not going to be the price being the king anymore. It's going to be the turnaround time and your speed to market, because people want to be able to test the market first and then be able to scale their production, as opposed to ordering 1,000 pieces. If you're a small company, that can be the death of you.
Really interesting. Thank you. And do you have anything else you'd like to add in regards to sourcing?
Sure. I would probably say that the turnaround time has been something that was probably the biggest component in me being able to grow my second company as opposed to my first. I was always waiting for months out of the year just to get my first samples in. When I was producing domestically, sometimes I would get it the same week or even the same day, depending upon the complexity of construction. And that's something that's priceless, because I can go from the factory to the showroom in a week just to be able to sell the products. And that means that you're able to keep up on trends. Not trends like a month in advance or a year in advance, but like weeks in advance.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Well, Matthew, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is MakerMatthew. And I'm getting into it. I'm going to start tweeting a lot more. And that's where I can be found more often than not.
And Matthew, as we said earlier, is the co-founder of Makers Row, Inc. So definitely check out Makers Row. And they're dedicated to making the manufacturing process simple to understand and easy to access, which is very cool. So
Absolutely.
We're so thrilled to have you today on our blog. So thank you so much for your time, Matthew. I know you're extremely busy. We appreciate your insight and look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks so much.
All right. If you like this, and we'd love to hear your comments. So in the comment section below, please answer the following questions. Your top 3 challenges you've faced with sourcing for your jewelry line. And do you have any sourcing secrets that worked for you? So thank you so much. Please join us at Flourish and Thrive Academy. And you can follow us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. And we always love to hear from you. Again, Matthew, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.